let's talk about what has to be probably my favorite decade for visuals, the 80s. Hi friends, I'm Duda, a graphic designer who likes to talk a lot about graphic design and pop culture. So welcome back to my channel. Listen, I know that the 80s probably sucked. That's probably not how we should start this video. If you're from the 80s, I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna be like, no, the 80s rocks, the 80s were amazing. Because my mom is from the 80s and she's exactly like that. She's like, no, the 80s were the best. I know I wasn't around in the 80s, I was a 2000 kid, but I'm pretty sure, like 99% sure, the 80s were not perfect. Regardless, I still love the 80s visually. I think, in my opinion, it's probably one of the most exciting decades for graphic design. I really love the 80s, pop culture, and I often draw a lot of inspiration from 80s graphic design, 80s visuals, 80s styles, and 80s aesthetics for my personal work. So that got me a little curious to try to understand why the 80s looked like that. It is a very interesting looking decade. Just like in any other decade, we had some aesthetics and styles that caught the attention of mainstream design. But some of them are just more memorable and iconic than others. We recently witnessed an 80s renaissance in pop music, therefore in design as well. Huge major artists appropriated the 80s culture, the 80s style, the 80s aesthetic for their art, such as Miley Cyrus with the whole 80s rock star thing and Plastic Hearts, The Weeknd with After Hours and Dawn FM, and Dua Lipa with the synth pop album Future Nostalgia. Love them all. I love all of these albums. I'm basic. Yes, the 80s are back, and by the end of this video, we're gonna attempt to understand why and what is about the 80s graphic design that is so interesting. But first, let's time travel to the 80s. So to start talking about design in the 80s, we have to start talking about a group of guys being dudes and like 3 women in Milan, Italy. They do not pass the Bechdel test. This group played a huge role in basically shaping what pop culture would visually look like during the 80s and early 90s. And this group were the Memphis Group. The Memphis Group, or simply Memphis, was an influential postmodern design collective that rejected the idea of form follows function praised by modernists and believed in the power of design and art. They believe in things looking curious and funky and weird. This group's work was often intentionally ironic and playful, challenging the seriousness of traditional design with vibrant colors, bold patterns, and funky shapes. So to put it this way, modernists had a plate of bland white chicken, and they stood up for that tasteless white chicken breast, okay? You know why? Because that chicken, it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine. It works, it has all the nutrients and proteins you need. The texture is the same, it will satisfy your hunger. This tasteless white chicken is perfectly fine. It does what it's supposed to do. And you know what? In a way, this bland chicken is beautiful. It's simplicity, it's slick look. This is what makes this chicken perfect. Some people don't like their chicken very seasoned, and it's okay. So for some people, like, the bland white chicken, it's the perfect chicken, and it works just fine. Meanwhile, radical designers, anti-designers, and postmodernists were like, you know what, this chicken's kind of tasteless, doesn't do it for me. I need like fried chicken, I need orange chicken, I need more salt, I need more pepper, I need more thyme and cumin and paprika maybe. I need spices. I need to spice up this chicken. I mean, I guess you're right. That is, after all, a chicken, and it works as a chicken. But won't the experience of eating the chicken be more enjoyable if it actually tastes good? So the group wanted to transform the design landscape by challenging the dominant focus on modernism at the time. To achieve this, they decided to create the Memphis Group. After their first initial meeting, they had like 3 months to sketch out a bunch of ideas, and by their next meeting they had like over 100 sketches and 100 different ideas. There is only one word to describe the Memphis impact after its launch to the public eye, and it's successful. Like it or not, it was successful. It was a mega hit, and people were like super excited to see that because it was really groundbreaking and it was really shape-shifting the design at the time, and it was something never seen before. Imagine going from this to seeing the Bel Air chair designed by Peter Shire or the carton bookcase by Ettore Sozzas. I'm not shitting on modernism, by the way, okay? Just like PSA. Like it or not, the Memphis Group had like a huge influence and iconic 80s pop culture moments. The MTV logo, designed in 1981, it's one of the biggest examples we have for Memphis-inspired logo design. We know MTV, it's not what it used to be anymore, but the logo has definitely become a cult classic at this point. The colors, the shapes, and the overall vibes are clearly heavily influenced by the Memphis style, and the experimentation they did with the MTV brand per se, it's very much postmodernist. They tossed the whole dome mess with the logo men from the 60s and did something truly groundbreaking and revolutionary by modifying the logo in infinite ways throughout the years while nailing the recognition factor while the brand didn't even have official colors. That's crazy. Yes, this is probably the most famous version, but you've probably seen this one, or maybe even this one. If we're talking about the 80s, we also cannot forget about the digital revolution of graphic design. The 80s marked the beginning of technology revolution in graphic design with the introduction of early personal computers like the Apple Macintosh, which feature graphical user interfaces, and the creation of softwares like the Mac Paint in 1984, created by computer programmer Bill Atkinson. Not sure if I'm saying that right. Atkinson? I don't know. Featuring its iconic designs by Susan Karen and Adobe Illustrator in 1987. Many fonts were also designed during this era specifically for computer screens, like how is the case of our famous and beloved Arial. Arial was designed by Robin Nicholas and Patricia Saunders in 1982 as a sans serif typeface for computer screens and laser printers. It was intended to provide legibility and clarity, especially at smaller size and lower resolutions, which were common in early computer displays. Arial gained a significant popularity when Microsoft licensed it. When Microsoft licensed it, I don't know how you pronounce license, as a core font for its Windows operating system, starting with Windows 3.1 in 1992. Because Arial was bundled with Windows, it just became the default sans serif font in many softwares, including Microsoft Office, which is iconic. This widespread distribution helped cement Arial's place as a standard typeface in digital docs. And I wrote this script using Arial. Arial is very cool. Love you, Arial. Also, the back cover is Arial, right? I think it's Arial. Like it's just a stretched Arial. So Arial, it's very iconic. Arial is pop culture. Okay, not to sound like a tech bro, and like, don't get me wrong, I love me some crafty design. By the way, I really need it. It's been like a long time since I don't craft stuff with my own hands. I'm always on the computer and my monitor just... Like, I need to connect myself with art without a computer being a mediator, you know? That's cool. However, I find the digital revolution in graphic design just fascinating. Like, I'm fascinated by it. It's really interesting. I don't know where we would be without it. It's incredible to me that you can make your own art, like truly art, with a computer. And it's really interesting to think about how this evolved until this point. They were really just people doing things, crazy things at the time. This shift has kind of, in a certain way, I don't want to be like black and white here, I don't want to like state something for real, but it has kind of, in a way, democratized creativity. Is that how, that word doesn't seem fine. Democratized? Jesus, like my brain is not functioning properly today. Like, it allowed anyone with a computer to explore graphic design, and I think that's amazing. We don't talk about digital revolution without talking about April Grayman. April is one of the first graphic designers to embrace digital tools in her design work. According to design historian Stephen Helen, April Grayman was a bridge between the modern and postmodern, the analog and the digital. She purchased her first Apple Macintosh in 1984 and history was made. This acquisition marked a significant moment in her career as it allowed her to finally experiment with digital technology, blending typography with photography and digital imagery, which helped shape the landscape of contemporary design. She is credited, along with early collaborator James Odgers, with helping to import the European New Wave design style to the US during the late 70s and early 80s. Unrelated, I think she is slay and I love her hair.
Martinis.
New Wave, or you also can call Swiss punk typography, I guess. I have never heard this term before actually. I literally just found out that New Wave can be called Swiss punk typography while I was doing research for this video, so I did not know that. Maybe that's new for you too. Who knows? Like learning new things every day. But anyways, New Wave is a style of typography that breaks away from traditional grid-based layout rules by implementing elements such as irregular spacing, the use of different type weights within the same word, and typeset at unconventional angles. Everything I just described, it screams polish here. Like, it's postmodernism as its core. New Wave was also a music genre and cultural movement that emerged in the late 70s and peaked in the early 1980s. I'm sorry about the airplane, you can probably hear that, right? Probably. It's really loud. The New Wave design style often reflected the aesthetics and the cultural impact of the New Wave music genre, as you can see in the album artwork at the time. You can clearly notice the New Wave design influence in some of the most iconic and legendary New Wave albums of all time. New Wave music is soulful. I love synths and I love weird stuff. I know it doesn't look like it. I look very basic. I guess I'm too lazy to hop on a aesthetic or a lifestyle. My true aesthetic is just existing. I just like to exist. In 1980, British journalist Nick Logan launched the so iconic and unforgettable The Face magazine. The shape was a cultural shifter, and since its early days, it was often classified as groundbreaking and innovative. The magazine is credited with launching Kate Moss's supermodel career and featured, like many others, superstars throughout the years, such as Beyonce and David Bowie. As quoted in their website, the talent behind the stories was legendary too, as the magazine worked with the best writers, photographers, stylists, and designers in the world. The Face didn't only report on the culture, it became the culture. For over 25 years, The Face was at the heart of British creativity. The English designer and art director Neville Brody built a really successful career during and after his outstanding work at The Face, where he worked as an art director for 5 years. His use of experimental typography design shaped the graphic look of The Face and innovated with a style that would be further adopted and replicated by many other artists. In an interview he did for the Architectural Review in 1986, Brody stated that he felt the atmosphere of college at the time very repressive and started feeling the influence of the punk culture in his work. He knew that punk was in no way anti-commercial and had the vision of how to exploit the concept commercially, but he felt free with the idea of being anti-establishment and above all, anti-taste. As he said in an interview, that was the great liberation, that you didn't have to accept things the way they were just because they were written down. And even with going against all tides, you know what? He was right. He did have commercial success. The magazine was like a hit. It is eternalized as a fashion bible, and it was spread over 20 countries. And now many of Neville's works are being displayed in museums, like their piece of art. Which is very interesting since he chose graphic design because he thought the art gallery world was very hostile. Like, he didn't agree with it, which obviously I know it's not the same thing. It's not like he created art specifically to put on galleries. It just happened. But I just think that now it's funny that his graphic design work are being viewed as, you know, pieces of art. And now that so marginalized style is being studied and praised by many artists and potential graphic designers who think they know things enough to make a YouTube video about it. And of course, we can't wrap up this video without talking about the retrofuturism of the 80s. Retrofuturism is a fascinating reflection of how people from that era imagined what the future will look like. This was heavily influenced by the emergence of digital technology, as we already talked about the digital revolution. But also, the 80s were a decade of tension and instability. The political climate, especially the ongoing Cold War, fueled a fascination with surveillance, dystopian futures, and space as the next frontier, which all these themes are prominently featured in the retrofuturistic visuals of the period, as we can see in films such as Blade Runner, Tron, and many others. I have to say, when I was doing my research for this video, I was like, okay, we have to talk about synthwave, right? Like, this is a huge part of the 80s. Like, synthwave is such a huge 80s thing. That's the most 80s thing I can think about. But no, synthwave, it's not from the 80s. It's from the mid-2000s. Excuse me? It heavily draws inspiration upon the 80s music and style, but it's not from the 80s. It's from the 2000s. I was really confused about that. I did not know that, but now I do. That's a fun fact. Maybe you didn't know as well, and now you're learning a new thing in this video. So I'm happy to help. In conclusion, the graphic design of the 80s is iconic. It embraced experimentation in the emerging digital revolution at the time, which collectively forged a visual compelling era that diverged sharply from the minimalism ideas of the 70s and 60s. This era introduced vibrant, saturated colors, crazy patterns, and stylized, angular, wrecked typefaces that reflected a digital influence and this thirst of being against modernism. Today, the legacy of the 80s graphic design is evident in the resurgence of retro and vintage themes across various platforms, such as from digital apps and video games to fashion to music and advertising. This revival, it's not merely about nostalgia. It's also a celebration of a time when artistic boldness met cutting-edge technology, leaving a profound impact that still directs today's design practices. The 80s will forever influence how we craft, create, and envision our world. Maybe there's some younger people watching whose parents didn't really grow up in the 80s. Maybe they were like teenagers in the 90s. But my parents were raised in the 80s. They were like kids. So I grew up with some references from it, and I was really curious about the age since a very young age. Like, I love the era, and I think the visuals are fascinating. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love me some modernism, but there is just something about the rule breaking and the shape shifting and, you know, going against the rules most of all, that is just, it gets me with postmodernism. You know, it's just like, that's the thing. That's the thing I like. Which is kind of interesting because in real life, I'm kind of boring. But with graphic design, I'm like, yes, rule breaking. Although I scared of breaking rules in real life. I mean, I've had my age of rebellion, I guess. But if everyone hates it, I probably love it. Because that's fun. That's who I am. My quirky personality trait. Camera actually died while I was recording the video, so I'm using my phone now. Thank you for watching. If you watched this far, I really appreciate it. I hope you liked this video because it took a while to make, but I really loved it and I really look forward to make more videos like this. Please, Rachel, give it to me. Please don't forget to, I don't know, maybe leave a like in this video, like drop a like, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos like this where I talk about graphic design and pop culture sometimes, and music, because those are things that I really like. I also post some design videos and some vlogs sometimes if you're into that, if you want to see my little silly life. So yeah, see you all in the next video. Bye!